When you want to know about the relationship between two variables, so correlation is a technique that we have in statistics which explains the relationship between two or more variables. In correlation, we have different correlation, simple correlation, multiple correlation and partial correlation. The points, the plots that has been put in a graph, that diagrammatic representation, you call it as scatter diagram. Hello everybody, I'm Divya, lecturing Vidhyaashram Pre-University College, Mysuru, the Temple of Excellence. Today I welcome you all for session 1 on your chapter, that is your correlation. Moving forward, the topic for today's discussion: introduction, meaning of correlation, types of correlation, techniques of measuring correlation and the scatter diagram. So in the previous chapter, that is your measure of central tendency, we have discussed about calculation of mean, median and mode and what is the relationship between mean, median and mode. In today's class, let us take up the new chapter, that is your correlation. So let us understand what is correlation is all about. So before understanding that, you want to know about the relationship between two variables. So when you want to know about the relationship between two variables, so correlation is a technique that we have in statistics which explains the relationship between two or more variables. So it just explains the relationship and the direction of the relationship, whether it is a positive correlation or negative correlation. It does not explain the cause and effect relationship, but it explains what is the relationship. It does not explain the cause and effect relationship. So in the previous chapter, you have learned how to construct a summary based on your mass data. So how you can reduce that into a single value. So based on that single value, the economist will take up the decisions. In today's class, we will be learning what is the relationship, how can we examine the relationship between two variables. Suppose you wanted to know the relationship between the COVID patients and the tablets they have taken, or that is because of the other factor. So here the variables will be X, Y and the other variable. So that is your extraneous variable. So that explains the relationship. So what is the reason for COVID? What is the reason whether they have taken the tablet? That is why the symptoms of COVID has decreased or they have increase the immunity power. So what is the relationship that we have with COVID virus and the vaccination use? So that explains the relationship. So X variable, Y variable. So what is the relationship that we have with that kind of variable? So that will be explained in your chapter, that is your correlation. The word itself says correlation means what? Co means two variables, which co means two, which a relationship, it explains the relationship of two or more variables. Suppose you see the yield in a production. So the production has increased, whether it has increased because of the rainfall or because of the irrigation facilities that you have used. What is the relationship? So due to the heavy rainfall or due to the irrigation facility that we have taken up. So that is why we have got the high yield in the production. So what is the relationship between two variables? So such kind of relationship will be studied in your unit 5, that is your chapter 5, correlation. Moving forward, meaning of correlation. Correlation is an analysis. So what is analysis? Analysis is nothing but a detailed study about the relationship between two or more variables. So it is a statistical tool for knowing the relationship between two or more variables. So in correlation, we have different correlation, simple correlation, multiple correlation and partial correlation. So what is simple correlation? So when you study the relationship between two variables, that is X and Y, that becomes your simple correlation. So if you study the relationship between the COVID and the vaccination use, so that kind of studying or analysis is called as simple correlation. So when you study the relationship between two or more variables, let's say for example, with the previous examples that we have taken, the COVID vaccination and as well as the Ayurvedic medicine that you have taken. So what is the relationship? Here the variables is not 2, it is more than 2. So such kind of relationship is called as what? Multiple correlation. So next is partial correlation. So what is this partial correlation? When you study the two variables keeping the other variable constant, that is called as partial correlation. The analysis is called as partial correlation. Moving forward, what does correlation measure? So as I have told you, it just explains direction, whether we have a positive relationship or a negative relationship. So for example, you people have scored good marks in your examination, that is your economic stats paper. So that is because of the lecture that ma'am has given or sir has given. So which kind of relationship it is? Positive relationship. So whether, suppose if you have failed in an examination, so what is the reason? Because of the social media that you people have not studied, so you sit and spend your time in your social media. Because of that, you people have failed in the examination. So what kind of relationship is that? Negative correlation. So what is the relationship? Whether we have a negative impact or the positive impact, what direction it moves. So that explains your correlation. So correlation studies and measure the direction and as well as the intensity of the relationship among the variables. Correlation measure variation, not causation. It explains the variation. So what is the movement? What is the direction? Whether it is a positive or negative or no relationship between the variables. So it does not explain the cause and effect of the variables. Next, correlation should never be interrupted as implying cause and effect relationship. So in your further classes, when we understand regression, we will understand how the regression works. So if you want to know the cause and effect relationship, the another technique we have in statistics, that is called as regression. In regression analysis, we will study the cause and effect relationship. Here in correlation, it only measures what? Your direction or the variation. So what is the changes that we have in the variables? What is the changes? Impact, negative impact or the positive impact or no impact at all. So that explains your correlation. Moving forward, the presence of correlation between two variables x and y simply means that when the value of one variable is found, the change of the other direction. So if one value changes, the other also should move in a same direction. So this is called as what? Positive correlation. So when you have a negative impact on the relationship, that is negative correlation, or you have no impact or no changes in the variables, then it will be non-correlation. Moving forward, types of correlation. So as I have been explaining you people regarding the types of correlation, we have positive correlation, negative correlation and non-correlation. So what is this positive correlation? When you have a direct impact on the variables, that is called as positive correlation. The earlier examples that we have discussed, my dear students, that is your marks that you people have scored because of the good lecturers as well as the good textbooks that you people have referred. So what is that? Positive correlation. So X will be the student scored marks in the examination, Y will be the lecture and the notes. So what is the relationship we have? That is the positive relationship. So the correlation is said to be positive when the variable move together in a same direction. So in your graph or an Excel sheet, if you explain this x-axis, y-axis, so x and the y scale, so the direction what it should be, it should move towards the upward direction. So this kind of diagrammatical representation explains what? Positive correlation. And the next is correlation is commonly classified into negative and positive, as I have told you. So positive correlation moves in the same direction. The examples also we have learnt. And the next we have is negative correlation. So what is this negative correlation? The correlation is negative when they move in an opposite direction. So if the price increases, the demand of a product decreases. So what is this? It is moving in an opposite direction. So you people have failed in the examination because of the social media. So what impact we have? Since you have increased watching number of social media app and engage in that, your score have been declined because you people have not studied. So what is that saying? They are showing the negative impact. So they are moving in an opposite direction. So such kind of relationship is called as what? Negative correlation. Moving forward, no correlation. So what is that no correlation? So you people have studied good in your examination, but you get sick during the examination. So there is no relationship at all. So between that. Another example is XYZ person has studied well and the YZ person has failed in the examination. So there is no relationship between those two. So that kind of relationship is called as no relation, when you have nothing to do with the X and Y variable. So that kind of relationship is called as what? No relation, no correlation or non-correlation. So when you explain this in a diagrammatic form, so you use a graph sheet or an Excel sheet and plot it. So this will be the x-axis and y-axis. So if you take up the scale and plot the diagram, if this movement happens, this direction explains positive correlation and the declining line explains the negative correlation. And when there is no correlation at all, you have nothing to do with the x and y variable, there is no relationship at all, then your diagrammatic representation will be this. Moving forward, let us understand correlation in a better way. So to understand and to measure the correlation between the two or more variables, we have various measurement techniques. So what are the measuring techniques? Scatter diagram, Karl Pearson's coefficient of correlation and Spearman's rank correlation. So let us discuss one by one and understand what is scatter diagram, what is your Karl Pearson's coefficient of correlation is all about, and also let us understand Spearman's rank correlation. So in today's class, we will be discussing about scatter diagram. So what is scatter diagram? The word itself says scatter. So scatter means what? The points that has been put in a graph, the points, the plots that has been put in a graph, that diagrammatic representation, you call it as scatter diagram. A scatter diagram is a useful technique for visually examining the form of relationship. So you wanted to know whether we have a height of a son and height of a father. So what is the relationship we have? Whether we have a relationship since the height of a father is that, since the height of a son will be this. So to know the relationship visually, we put a diagram and that is called as scatter diagram. So examining the form of relationship without any calculating numerical value. So you don't calculate any numerical value here, but you use a graph and put up scatter points into that and find out, based on the direction, you will find out whether we are getting a negative correlation or we are having no correlation or a positive correlation. So without any numerical calculation, just by the diagrammatic representation, we will understand what kind of relationship it is. So that kind of measuring technique of correlation is called as scatter diagram. So in this technique, the value of two variables are plotted as points on a graph paper. So as I have told you, in a graph sheet, points will be plotted. So points you plot and find out the relationship. So based on the direction, based on the movement of the points, you will identify whether it is a positive relation we have, whether negative or no relation at all. So from a scatter diagram, one can get a fairly good idea about the nature of the relationship. Moving forward, so in scatter diagram, the degree of closeness of the scatter points will be known to us. So what is the degree of relationship? What is the closeness we have with the relation? So the direction enables us to examine, us to know the relationship. So if all the points lie in one line, the correlation is perfect and it is said to be unitary. So it lies in a straight line. So if it lies in a straight line, it is what? It is unitary. In a scatter points are widely dispersed around the line, the correlation is low. So if it is widely dispersed, if it is widely distributed in a graph, then it is what? There is low correlation. So the relation is said to be linear, or scatter points lie near a line or on a line. So if it lies on a line, so it explains what? Linear relationship. Moving forward, let us understand the diagrammatic representation of a scatter diagram. The first one is what? Positive correlation. As one variable increases, so does the other variable also increases. That is positive correlation. And the negative is, as one variable increases, the other variable decreases. The price and the demand, the supply and the demand. So what we have? Inverse relationship. What kind of relationship we have? Inverse relationship. That is your negative correlation. And the next one is no correlation. So what is this no correlation? There is no relationship between two variables. So this is your scatter diagram representation. I'll give you one example, my dear students. Kindly let us use that in a graph sheet and solve that problem and find out the relationship. So x variable and y variable. So let's assume x is a height of a father. Y is what? Y is the height of a son. So let's give the data. Let's use the data as 10, 20, 30, 40 and 50. Height of a son, that is your y, also the data will be 10, 20, 30, 40 and 50. So diagrammatically, if you plot it on the graph, your x-axis and y-axis. So x-axis represents the height of a father and your y-axis represents the height of a son. And let us use the scale. That is 10 centimeter, 10, 20, 30, 40 and 50. 10, 20, 30, 40 and 50. So your height of a father, that is for 10, what is the value they have given? For 10, the y-axis value is 10 only. For 20, it is 20. For 30, it is 30. For 40, it is 40. For 50, it is 50. So if you draw a line using the scatter points, the direction we are getting. So what kind of direction we are getting? A positive correlation. So what kind of a relationship we have? We have a direct relationship because one is increasing, the other is also increasing. So what is this? It explains it is just an assumption. It is because the height, whatever we have taken, it is an arbitrary figure, so that doesn't exist in the reality. So simply for your understanding, I have taken this examples to make you understand the direction. So when it moves towards the upward direction, then it is positive correlation. So like this only, in your examination, if they give the data x-axis and y-axis, write down the data and put the scatter points and draw a line. So based on the direction of the line, decide what kind of relationship we have between the two variables. That's it for today's class. Thank you so much for joining. So hope the session was very interesting and we have learnt about different types of correlation, what is correlation is all about, and we have also understood the different measuring techniques of correlation, that is your scatter diagram, Karl Pearson's coefficient of correlation, Spearman rank correlation. So in next class we will understand about the Karl Pearson's coefficient of correlation. This is theoretical part. In the next chapter, in the next session, we will take up the problems on correlation and see what is the relationship that we get. Thank you so much once again. Smile is the biggest jewel you can wear. Keep smiling, people. Thank you.